You think light is fast because it moves through space quickly. You imagine it as the universe's top racer, the fastest thing allowed to win. You imagine the universe setting a speed limit, a cosmic rule, a line drawn in space that nothing is allowed to cross. You think Einstein discovered that limit, measured it, named it. That picture feels tidy, mechanical, almost reasonable, and it is wrong. You think objects move through space and light just moves through it faster. You think speed is about how hard you push, about engines, about effort. You think if we were clever enough, we could cheat, find a shortcut, add more energy, go faster anyway. But the problem isn't power. It isn't technology. It isn't even light. The problem is what you think motion is, what you think space is, and what you think time is quietly doing in the background. That entire picture is about to fail. You think speed is simple, distance over time, how far something goes, divided by how long it takes. You imagine motion as an object sliding through space. Space sits there. Time ticks along. The object moves inside both. That picture feels harmless. It feels so obvious you don't notice it's an assumption. You think faster means the same motion, just more of it, more push, more energy, more effort in the same direction. This is wrong. Speed is not something an object has. It is something you calculate by comparing two things you assume are independent, space and time. You assume space stays still while time flows. You assume those two backdrops are reliable. They are not. When you say something moves, what you really mean is that its position changes relative to you already. Motion is not absolute. It depends on who is watching. From a moving train, the ground rushes backward. From the ground, the train rushes forward. Neither description is privileged. You are used to this idea, so used to it that you think you understand it. You don't, because beneath that comfort is a deeper assumption that while motion is relative, time is not. You believe everyone agrees on how long things take. You believe clocks are universal referees. That belief has never been tested by your intuition. It feels too basic to question. But consider what speed actually demands. To say something moves at a certain speed, you must agree on two measurements, a length and a duration. If either of those shifts, the speed changes even if the object does nothing differently. You rarely notice this because in everyday life, lengths stay fixed and clocks stay synchronized, not because they must, but because your speeds are small, so small that reality lets you keep your illusions. You think speed is about motion through space, but motion is already relative, and speed quietly inherits that relativity. The moment you stop assuming space and time are separate, stable backgrounds, speed loses its innocence. It stops being a simple property of objects. It becomes a negotiation between observers. And here is the crack you haven't looked into yet. If speed depends on space and time are not fixed, then going faster may not mean what you think it means at all. You expect speeds to add. That expectation is so ingrained you rarely notice it. If you walk forward on a moving train, you expect to move faster than the train alone. If the train speeds up, you expect your speed to increase with it. This feels inevitable. It is also an assumption. In this picture, space is passive. Time is universal. Speeds stack on top of each other like numbers. Now imagine light, not as something mystical, just as something that moves. If you chase a beam of light, common sense says you should see it slow down, run faster, and the light should look less fast. Run fast enough, and it should look stationary. This expectation is unavoidable if speed works the way you think it does. But it never happens. No matter how fast you move, light still moves away from you at the same speed. Not approximately. Exactly. This is not subtle. This is catastrophic for intuition because it means speed is not behaving like speed. It means motion through space is not the whole story. It means something you thought was negotiable is not. You might think this is a trick of measurement, an illusion caused by clocks or rulers being imperfect. But the effect survives. Every attempt to explain it away change the source, change the observer, change the direction. The number does not budge. This is not how speeds behave. This is how constants behave. And constants don't describe objects. They describe structure. A universal constant is not telling you how fast something goes. It is telling you how the universe allows things to relate to each other. At this point, you might try to rescue your picture by sacrificing something small. Perhaps time runs a little differently for moving observers. Perhaps rulers shrink just a bit. That sounds like a tweak. It is not. Because once one observer's time is allowed to differ from another's, there is no universal clock left to appeal to, no background rhythm to fall back on. The quiet referee you trusted is gone. The speed of light doesn't just refuse to change. It forces everything else to give way instead. And whatever breaks to protect that number was never as solid as you believed. You think time is what stays when everything else changes. Motion can be relative, positions can shift, but time, you believe, keeps its own steady pace. You imagine a universal now, a single moment shared everywhere, a background rhythm ticking the same for all observers. That picture feels unavoidable. Without it, nothing seems to make sense, and yet it cannot survive. If the speed of light is the same for everyone, then something else must change to make that possible. Length alone cannot do the job. There are only one remaining place to hide the difference: time. Not metaphorically, not as a poetic idea, as measured duration. Two observers moving relative to each other cannot agree on how long events take, not because their clocks are broken, but because their clocks are correct. This is where intuition fails hardest. You want time dilation to be an effect layered on top of reality, a distortion, a side consequence of motion. It is not. Time dilation is the price of insisting that light speed never changes. If time did not stretch, the constant would break, and the constant does not break, so now fractures. Events that are simultaneous for you are not simultaneous for someone else in motion, not delayed, not misreported, different. There is no hidden master clock correcting them later. No deeper time. They are both approximating. That idea is comforting, and it is wrong. Time does not flow independently of motion. It adjusts itself to protect the structure underneath reality. You still picture motion as something happening in time, but the situation is reversed. How fast you move determines how much time you experience, not as an illusion, as a physical fact. And once time stops being universal, speed stops being what you thought it was. Because speed was never just about space. It was about how space and time negotiate their relationship. The moment time gives up its independence, the universe stops having a single story it can tell itself. You still imagine space as the arena, a vast, empty container where events happen. Time flows, objects move, space just sits there. This picture survives only because you learned it early, not because it is true. Once time fractures, space cannot remain innocent. They were never separate actors sharing a stage. They were parts of the same structure all along. You don't move through space and through time independently. You move through a combined geometry where changing one reshapes the other. This is difficult because your mind wants a background, something fixed to measure against, something that stays still while things happen. Relativity removes that luxury. There is no universal grid of space waiting to be filled. No invisible graph paper behind the universe. Lengths depend on motion the same way durations do. If time stretches for moving observers, space must contract. Not as a compensation, as a requirement. Otherwise, the constant fails. The speed of light is not being protected by clever tricks. It is being enforced by the geometry itself. Space and time reshape themselves to keep it intact. This is where the word speed begins to lose meaning, because speed assumes a fixed distance crossed in a fixed time. Neither exists universally anymore. You are tempted to imagine a deeper layer underneath all this, a true space, a true time, something absolute that relativity is merely hiding. That instinct is understandable, and it has no evidence. Every attempt to reveal that hidden background fails, not because we lack precision, but because there's nothing there to reveal. Space is not the stage. Time is not the metronome. They are joint constraints woven together, shaped around a single invariant. And that invariant is not telling you how light moves. It is telling you how reality is allowed to exist. You think limits are caused by weakness. If something cannot go faster, you assume it lacks power. That intuition works everywhere else. Push harder, go faster. Add energy, increase speed. So when you hear that nothing with mass can reach light speed, you imagine an engineering problem, better engines, more fuel, enough ingenuity, and the limit should give way. It never does. As you add energy to a moving object, something unexpected happens. Its speed increases at first. Then it resists, not mechanically, geometrically. The extra energy does not go where you expect. It stops translating cleanly into motion through space. Instead, it pours into time. This is not poetic language. It is literal. The object's internal clock slows relative to yours. Its processes stretch out. Its experience of time thins. You are not pushing it closer to the edge of space. You are rotating its motion away from space and into time. This is the point where intuition breaks completely. Motion is not a single arrow pointing forward through space. It is a direction in space-time. And space-time has a fixed structure. Light sits at a special angle in that structure. Not because it is fast, but because it moves entirely through space and not through time. Everything else must split its motion between the two. The faster you push an object through space, the less freedom it has to move through time. At light speed, there is no time left to give. That is the wall. Not a barrier, not a force. A boundary in how motion itself can be composed. Adding energy doesn't help because the problem was never insufficient push. You are not approaching a finish line. You are approaching a geometric limit, and geometry does not negotiate. You still feel tempted to treat light as the odd one, the exception, the strange thing that refuses to behave. That instinct is backward. Light is not doing anything unusual. It is doing the simplest thing allowed. It moves through space-time without spending any motion on time. No aging, no internal change, no clock that can tick. From light's perspective, if that phrase even makes sense, there is no duration to experience. Emission and absorption are not separated by time. They are the same event. This is not because light is magical. It is because you are constrained. Everything with mass is forced to move partly through time. You cannot stop aging. You cannot redirect all your motion into space. That requirement is what makes you slow. The universe does not limit your speed out of caution. It limits you because your existence depends on time passing inside you. Light has no such dependency. It does not carry processes that must unfold. It does not need a sequence of moments to be what it is. So the usual story that light is special and everything else is normal is exactly wrong. Light reveals the structure. Matter is what struggles within it. The constant speed of light is not a property of light. It is a property of space-time itself. Light simply traces its edges. Once you see this, the hierarchy flips. You are not failing to reach light speed because you are imperfect. You are failing because reaching it would require giving up time entirely. And without time, there is no chemistry, no memory, no causation unfolding inside you. No you. Light doesn't break the rules. It shows you what the rules are. You imagine limits as obstacles, things to be bypassed, failures waiting to be overcome. That intuition is comforting. It allows you to picture a universe without boundaries, infinite potential, unlimited speed, a place where cleverness could always triumph. That picture is wrong. The speed of light is not a restriction. It is the shape of possibility itself. It is the contour that gives motion meaning. It is the scale that allows causality to exist. It is the edge that makes events distinguishable from each other. Without it, simultaneity collapses entirely. Without it, the sequence of cause and effect dissolves. Without it, there is no distinction between past, present, and future. No framework in which anything could exist as an entity separate from everything else. Limits are not failures. They are the fabric of existence, and they are unavoidable. You cannot argue them away. You cannot engineer past them. You cannot push harder or think smarter. Because the universe is not a playground. It is a structure. And its structure is written in the geometry of space-time. The speed of light is the marker of that geometry, not a rule for light, a rule for reality. Everything you are, everything you measure, everything you experience is defined around it. Matter, energy, time, space, they are all sculpted to respect this constant. And once you see it, all is unavoidable, not because the universe is generous, not because it is clever, because it simply exists this way. No amount of intuition could have guessed it. No mental image could have held it. Limits are not imposed on you. They are the reason there is a you at all. The fastest thing in the universe is not moving. It is the boundary of reality. And everything else, your body, your thoughts, your experience, navigates the shadow it casts. There is nothing to surpass. There is only the geometry in which existence unfolds. And that realization quietly collapses everything you thought you knew about motion, speed, and even time itself.